Welcome everyone to Haneefah's TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Hello Tomorrow Season 1 Episode 1. It's called Your Brighter Tomorrow Today. So I'll start spoiler free because it is an episode 1. This ranked high on the Patreon pilot vote. It's a new show from Apple TV Plus. It stars Billy Crudup. If I'm saying his name correctly, I thought it was Crudup for some reason. But it stars him and it's set in this kind of alternate world where it's kind of like the World's Fair version of the future. It's that like classic 1940s vision of what the future is. So everything in this has a very 40s and 50s art style, but there's also technology that is more advanced, like the cars hover, there's robots that are delivering the mail and serving drinks in diners and stuff. Another thing I'd maybe compare it to is like the world from like Fallout, the video game series, but before the apocalypse. When you play those games and you see the hints of what the world used to be, it's very much what the world of Hello Tomorrow is. So that's the aesthetic, which honestly when I saw the trailer that immediately caught my eye. It looked kind of, maybe unique's not the right word because there's some direct things I can compare it to, but it feels unique in the sense that I've not seen like a TV show really capture this feeling. Some movies have, dabbled in it a bit, that retro future kind of thing, but I feel like this specific thing I've not seen in a sort of TV show. And it's Apple, so it has some money behind it. It looks quite high quality. The big surprise for me getting into episode 1 is that it was only like 30 something minutes. It was a relatively short episode. I assumed going in that this was going to be your 45 minutes to an hour style show, but that's not to say that I felt that it was lacking. It was actually a full-fledged chapter of a story. It set up the characters. The main character in particular, Jack Billings, who Crudup plays, he's a salesman. That's the premise of this, is that so we're in this version of the world and he's a salesman who holds seminars and goes door to door and stuff like that and sells basically, like, I don't know if it's quite timeshares or just like apartments on the moon, but he's selling people the idea of going to the moon and living up there. And he's got a little team of other salesmen that work with him, one of whom is Azaria. Of course, you might know from other stuff. He feels perfect for this type of setting for some reason. But that's the basic gist of it. And I think, first of all, I'll say I liked it. I thought the first episode was enjoyable. I think this entire type of setting, this like ultra optimistic, we can go to the moon and all that. The fact that the place, the dome in the moon that people can move to is called Brightside. So they keep saying go to Brightside. You can have a brighter tomorrow, all that kind of stuff. It very much feels like a facade to hide what's really going on with people. It feels like you're just sort of like trying to put duct tape over the problem and pretending that everything's perfect and nice, when in reality your real problems are very much there. So there's kind of like while it's got a very upbeat kind of sensibility to it, there's kind of a dark underside to it where what it's actually talking about with the characters and what this is kind of representing is the human nature of pretending that problems aren't there, or pretending that they're fixed because you have a nice thing. And that's very much something in the first episode. As it goes on, it establishes that the main character, Jack Billings, is very much that. He has like a family life from his past that he's kind of hiding from, that he's ignoring. When he's doing his sales pitch, he tells people that his family are living on the moon and it's perfect and he loves it there. But in reality, he has an old ex-wife, he's got an estranged son, things like that. And it kind of like becomes clear that this lie that he's selling is something that he also, it's not even just that he is an idiot or he doesn't understand what he's doing. He's actually selling a lie that he himself doesn't even believe in. So you've got that kind of, I wouldn't say used car salesman quality. It's a little bit more specific than that, but there's a little bit of that. Now, that's not to say that he's unlikable. In fact, he's very kind of sympathetic and he feels kind of like a flawed character. And obviously, I think the story of the show is going to be accepting the reality and what's really going on. There's a great thing early on where you see a scene that's on like it's a suburban street, there's houses, there's kids playing, there's dogs being walked, but you see a dog being walked by a drone. It's like a robot drone that's got the leash, and the dog's being walked by that. And then like 2 seconds later, you see a couple of kids playing with a robot dog. And obviously, I'm assuming they're coming from different families, but I thought that was a very intentional thing of like, we could solve this problem quite quickly. You take the real children, you take the real dog, and you put them together, and like they're both benefiting from a real connection, as opposed to this fake one that they've created for the kids with the robot dog, and they've created for the dog with the robot drone. So it's doing a lot of really smart little things with just how it presents this world, and the fact that this all feels very happy and upbeat, like a shiny facade on top of whatever's really bothering people. And it's, there's something bad happens in that scene as well, which I won't spoil, but it's kind of like there's like a dark ending to it after a very upbeat kind of goofy thing where the mail truck has got like a cartoon dog or whatever. Is it a duck? It was a cartoon duck, I think. But there was like a cartoon character in like the screen of the window, because the truck was just self-driving, but they've got this cartoon character who's saying hello to people as it's driving down the street. It's very much going for that Americana 1950s white picket fence, the dream's a lie kind of thing. So yeah, no, I liked the first episode. I thought Crudup was good in the lead role, and his supporting cast are quite enjoyable, and like all of his like salesmen that work for him, 2 guys and a woman, both of them, like, or all 3 of them, they all feel like they don't necessarily, they're all quite optimistic, and they don't necessarily know the real sort of cynicism behind what's going on with Crudup. Like, the younger guy is very upbeat and very like gung-ho about everything, and it's funny actually that obviously Apple also put out Severance, because I think there is maybe a small comparison to be made in that the upbeat work environment in Severance, where they're all kind of talking like they love what they're doing, this has kind of got that. It's not quite the same thing in that they're forcing it on necessarily in the same way, but that kind of fake niceness over the top of everything is kind of there. It doesn't feel like it's aping on Severance. They're very different shows and they're doing very different things, but that one just very particular detail is kind of there in both shows. So that's kind of interesting. What I will say, I was surprised actually. There's I always say that any first episode should have a hook at the end, like something that is different to what you knew about the premise that is introduced at the end of the first episode, to be like, okay, most of this first episode is mostly what you saw in the trailer. It's mostly just setting up the core basics of what this show is. But there should be a hook at the end of that first episode that says, yeah, but there was one thing that you didn't quite know, or something that you didn't quite understand the way you thought you did. And this show does have that. What surprised me, though, was the thing that it did, like, I kind of saw coming. And I'm not saying that as a complaint. I was getting a feeling about something as I was watching the episode, but I thought it was something that wasn't going to like come up and be revealed or talked about until later in the season. I was genuinely very surprised when it kind of just did it at the end of the first episode. Another thing that this episode has is that it starts with a really strong opening scene. So any first episode, kind of like you want to start with obviously a scene that'll hook the audience, but something that kind of like puts forth the basic premise of what the show is. And the opening scene of this is just our main character talking to a guy in a diner who looks upset and selling him like a place on the moon, right? But it's the way he does it is what makes it entertaining. It's this like way that he has this pitch, and you don't necessarily know if we can trust our main character yet. Like, this all could be a bunch of nonsense. He could be taking advantage of this guy, which he thinks. But he talks him into wanting this thing. He pulls out his little leaflet. He talks about how great it is. He pulls out a little rock and says, "This is a rock from the moon that my son picked out." And it's just like, it's a really good case example of like, okay, this is what they're selling. You see the robot serving drinks in the diner. It establishes the world very, very quickly. And you get this sort of little case study of what this world is in the opening scene on its own, before we then start to expand on who the characters are and fill out the world with some more details. It's kind of just engrossing as a little short film on its own, almost like a proof of concept for what the world is. And I think, especially when you've got a show that is set in a different kind of world, that's very effective. Although I think many good shows will start with like a little case of like, here's what the main character does and what they're good at, or what they're not good at, if that's more to the point of what the show is doing. But I think that's what this does. And then from there, it introduces kind of the character's backstory and gets into fleshing out the world a little bit more. So yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think that the world feels different, and the show has kind of this very different tone to it. I think most shows that deal with this kind of story, this kind of flawed main character who's trying to work out his issues, which fundamentally is what most stories tend to be about, is whatever the main character is going through. But it's using this world that it's set in to kind of like, be this analogy for how we cover up how we feel and how we ignore how we really feel. And put on this brave front, and in this world, the brave front is the very clean world, the technology that makes everything easier, the dream of going to the moon, all that stuff. But that's not really solving any of the real problems, and I think the main character story kind of fits into that really well. And then the world just sort of lends itself to this it's different feeling. And when I say there's a sort of darker element underneath, it's not like super dark. We're not talking like it's secretly. It's not like Blue Velvet when it looks like Americana, but then turns out to be this dark underbelly with really like nasty characters. It's not like that. When I say there's a dark underneath to it, I just mean there's something more real underneath. There's like real emotions underneath that need to be explored, that are kind of being hidden away from. There is kind of like a positive feeling to the whole thing though, which is kind of refreshing, because I think it's very easy to do drama in a very serious way where everyone's getting upset. This is a little more intricate, because we're doing it through this idea of everyone trying to hide behind something. But the real things are starting to seep out a little bit, and you can kind of see them even in this first episode. So I'll say spoilers so I can talk about what's in the episode. There's a couple of things that I should talk about. The main thing, of course, being the big ending, which I kind of got that vibe. Like early on, as soon as they were talking about the moon, I spoilers here, I was like, I don't think anyone's going to the moon. I don't think anyone's up there. This sounds like a lot of nonsense. Even in the context of the show, it sounds like a pipe dream that he's selling. And sure enough, the end of the episode sort of confirms this by revealing that the guy he says put this base on the moon is actually the name of a turtle or a tortoise that this guy in an old folks home has. This guy in the old folks home, who's played by Frankie Faison, who you might know from Silence of the Lambs. He's in a small role in that, but he's in a bunch of stuff. Like, I recognize, you'll probably know his face and voice. He's been in a lot of things over the years, but he's like this actor from like a sci-fi like western that people in this world like. And he's like saying how great it is up on the moon. But you find out at the end that this is like, he does believe that, but he's actually just an old folks home. He's ill, he's old, and he's confused. And the main character, maybe taking advantage isn't quite the right thing to say, but he kind of uses him as a sales pitch to people to convince them, hey, this big famous actor you like is on the moon, and he says he loves it. And he seems to believe that he is on the moon. And even the little rocks that he says are from the moon are just from the tank where the little turtle's in. So, like, all of this is not true. This is all just something he's selling, and it's kind of like a little bit of a reveal at the end that he really is just taking advantage of everyone, and he's not actually giving anyone he's selling to this dream that he's promising them. That's kind of a big setup for the show. That's the kind of thing. So obviously, like, part of the arc of the show has got to be him kind of like ultimately learning to move away from that and maybe redeeming himself in some way. He's very entertaining to watch though, throughout. And there's some hints of this throughout the episode as well. So the other big part of the story, of course, is that he's got a son that's about 20, and he ends up reconnecting with him, kind of. The son never actually finds out that the main character, Jack's his father. The ex-wife, we see get injured and is put in a coma because she gets hit with the automated mail truck. So the scene with the suburbs, she comes out to pick up her package, and because the van tries to not hit a dog, it backs up into her, and she actually looked dead to me, but it turns out she's in the hospital. She's in a coma, and it's actually the main character's mother who's in an old folks home, the same old folks home as the other guy. Says to him, look, you need to go and like connect with your son and do this, and he's like, no, I'm not going to. But he does go and check out the house. He almost would have met him there had the son been there, but instead the son was at the sales seminar for the Brayside stuff. And because he doesn't know what his son looks like anymore, because he's not seen him since he was a baby, he never knew it was him. So he ends up not finding out until he runs into him at the hospital, and the son character, Joey, is like, oh, I bought a place on the moon. It's something to look forward to. There's nothing for me down here. And the main character then, later that night, decides to like send his son a letter saying that he's been refused a place on the moon, and gives him his money back, and actually gives him more than what he spent to sort of on his first payment to begin with. And in the moment, I was thinking, okay, why did he do this? Why did he send this letter? Because it leads to this confrontation where the son comes to the motel he's staying at and insists, like, what happened? Why was I rejected? And kind of like sticks up for himself and argues with him a little bit. And you're thinking, oh, is he going to reveal that he's his father or something? But if he didn't want this confrontation, then why did he send that letter? Obviously he's guilty, but why is he guilty? And obviously at the end of the episode we realise he's guilty because there is no trip to the moon, there is nothing to look forward to, and he's probably giving him some extra money out of guilt and out of he's not going to be a father, he's not going to be emotionally like connected to him, he can throw some money at him, it's kind of this cold like, well, I'll at least do this for him to try and settle his guilt. But because he's so good at sticking up for himself, in response, Jack in this scene towards the end of the episode says, you know what, you're very confident and you stuck up for yourself, you could be a salesman, and offers him to be like the fourth person under his wing on this, like, traveling through the country selling people these moon timeshares or whatever they are. And I think in the moment, like, I don't think this was something he was planning on, but I think in the moment he sort of saw his son get upset, fight him, be mad at him, and be passionate. That I think in the moment this was him sort of like, oh, I'll kind of do it at a distance. Like, you know what, I'm going to be his mentor, I'm going to take him on the road with me, I'm going to be a father figure, but I'm not going to actually tell him I'm his father, because that's too difficult to admit and like explain why he's not been there and why he's never reached out before and everything else. So again, it's this idea of like, he's kind of got a little olive branch to like maybe deal with his real problems and maybe like face his own life, but he's doing it through this facade. He's doing it under these layers of this other scenario, which again fits into the themes of the whole show. And everything they have in this world is just like covering up all the real problems that are going on. So yeah, I thought that was I think the two actors played off well from each other. There was a lot of good chemistry, I think, between all the cast. Hank Azaria seems to have he seems to owe money maybe for gambling or something like that, because there's like a bad guy after him. He seems to be having an affair with the woman who's on the team, because she mentions a husband, but they seem lovey-dovey. Alison Pill's meant to be in the show, but she's not in the first episode, so I didn't see her. It is worth mentioning as well that the first 3 episodes all went up today, so you can watch the first 3. Now I was fairly into this first episode. I think it set up his character very well, it set up the world very well, and it's sort of key sort of metaphor that it's using over the course of the whole thing. Just it kind of fits, it works, and it feels like it's using a very different aesthetic to tell a fairly simple story, but it fits together really well. So I was into it. Now how will it go throughout the season? I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to try and watch the next 2 before next week, because it's airing weekly, but the first 3 went up today. So I do want to look at the other episodes and see how it progresses from here, because it was such a nice world to be in for 30 something minutes. I don't know if all the episodes are that length, I didn't check, but I thought the writing was pretty strong from this first episode, and again, just I feel like something a little different, which was nice. So yeah, if you've had a look at it, let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications and all that stuff. It helps out a lot if you do. You can also support all the content by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there financially for however much per month you would like. But that is the show. That is Hello Tomorrow. I'm looking forward to checking out episode 2 and seeing how it progresses from here. But that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?